Hello, thank you guys for coming out tonight. This is a great opportunity to share some things with you all. I'm glad that you all took the time out of your evening to come hear us. Thank you, Bobby, Sarah, everybody from the library that invited us out today. So the entrepreneur, or the 101s that the library has been putting on, I think are going extremely well, and nice diversified amount of information. And again, we're proud to speak a little bit about entrepreneurship tonight. So Entrepreneurship 101, and I'm Edward Musselman, my wife Meagan Musselman, and we're just gonna start digging into it. So we're gonna tell a little bit of our personal path through where we've been and where we currently are in our business adventure and life, and try to relate it into ways that hopefully are usable, concrete tools that you can take and apply to whatever path it is that you're on. An entrepreneur is many different phases, or it has many different phases. So you may find yourself finding similarities that we've not been to, that we have already accomplished, that we have struggled through, or just getting started, or you may be in your day job and never having even given it a thought. So again, we'll try to address all of those through the path. Our story, very briefly, we met at Murray State University, and prior to our marriage, I decided to hike the Appalachian Trail. I referenced that a little bit later. And my fiance at the time was wonderful enough to allow me to do so. It was a dream of mine, and was able to get that done. A lot of what I draw off of in business, and the struggles and barriers that we come across, I find the fortitude to kind of, I liken it to the Appalachian Trail hike. So 4.5 months of day in and day out, one step in front of the other, is very much like business. There's peaks and the valleys, and the vistas are beautiful whenever you're at the top of a mountain, but you put in a lot of time, effort, energy, pain, loss to get to those points. So it's not all about the cover stories on the newspapers. It's not all about the highs. The true entrepreneur has to really dig in deep and day in and day out work through the path to get to those vistas. So again, we'll reference that a little bit later as well. We got married young. As all good parents, all good family, all good friends, whenever you're getting married young, they're like, do you know what you're doing? Megan's parents are in attendance, so they can attest to this. And we probably didn't know what we were doing. We might have gotten lucky, who knows? But it's been valuable to our path. And again, all paths are different. Where you stand right now, and I hopefully will hit on this again later, but where you stand in your life now, don't worry about what has happened to get you there. Everything that you've done up until this point has strengthened you and developed you to bring you to this position. So if you are looking at changing your trajectory, or need fortitude to move on, or tools, just know that the coulda, shoulda, woulda doesn't matter. And you probably are better equipped than if you had taken a traditional path to be where you're at. So your mindset currently really is all that matters. Draw off your strengths and kind of just try to ignore the weaknesses. So the married young thing worked out very well for us. Haven't regretted a day. I can't say the same for Megan. I won't speak for her. We both have been educated. She has a lot more degrees than me. She has more completed degrees than I have incomplete degrees, and I've got quite a few incomplete degrees. But we are educated. We do have that foundation of academia, which I think is valuable in knowing one versus the other. We wanted to take a different path, though, and very early on in our marriage, the discussions of kind of outside income and not working the same job until we were 70 were always topics of our conversation. And how to get there, we had no idea, but it was early on in our conversation. And very early on, also, we realized that both of us were aligning a lot in what we felt like was valuable to our future. So one struggle, and we get, again, touch on this in detail later, but making sure that your spouse or significant other is on board, because there can be a lot of energy loss in trying to pull someone along or convince them that that's the right idea. Buying and selling baseball cards, I mean, poor college kid, and I had an affinity for baseball cards as a child, got back into it for fun, did some card shows, started buying and selling on eBay, and really that was my first real foray into buying something and selling that and trying to build something on that. So that turned into actually Volkswagen Bugs, and then that turned into houses. And then buying and selling houses and renting houses has been kind of what we've slowly done over the years. So we started a family. We've got a 12-year-old daughter. We've got an 8-year-old son. We also have a 2-year-old daughter. And that's kind of just added spice to the whole life. They're wonderful, and I can't imagine doing it without them. So we started the family. We started by buying a house to live in. We bought a 2-bedroom house, nothing special. She was in school, also working. I was probably in school. I've been in school like the better part of 20 years. And I was also working. And we bought a small single-family house. And it was so easy. It was back in 2004, and it was whenever the banks were basically begging you to take their money. And, so it was obviously a seller's market. House prices were high, but it was super easy to get a hold of money. So here we are, two college/early professionals starting a family, and it was super easy to buy a house. So the bank basically said, "Yeah, absolutely. Here's some money. Okay, well, it's better than we were yesterday. We'll take that, and we'll have this house, and we'll get started." So we let the dust settle on that sale, and we realized, let's do that again, and let's buy another house. And so we didn't know what we were doing, but we just started down that path. And so then we had a rental house, and then a few months later we saw another one, and we bought another one. Very little money down at that point in time, if any. Put a tenant in there, they're paying the rent, and that's how we got started. So I didn't know anything about fixing anything until it broke, and then I learned. And I didn't want to be out there doing plumbing repairs or collecting rent or showing houses. All those things were not fun, never were, still aren't. But again, that's kind of the piece, those are the valleys that nobody's seeing, that you're figuring this stuff out along the line. Meagan has a PhD. She won't bring it up. She never mentions it. But Dr. Musselman, and she was able to work, hold steady career, professional jobs, get her bachelor's, get her master's, get her PhD, and do the lion's share of raising our children. And I don't say that because I don't feel like I've been involved, but it certainly was amazing responsibility for Meagan. She did a fantastic job. So the curves started in 2004, as you know, just kind of a brief rehash of the economy and the housing market in the United States. 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, everything's going along just fine. Everybody's feeling good about it. The one thing that I can hang my hat on that I feel like our entire second half of our trajectory would be different, that whenever things started feeling not right, whenever 1 + 1 didn't equal 1, or didn't equal 2 anymore, man, I'll tell you. Whenever 1 + 1 didn't equal 2, and it didn't pass that sniff test anymore, we were very fortunate. We were gung-ho, and we were wanting to grow, and we were wanting to do this, that, and the other, and we had good jobs at that time, and we were moving along. But all of a sudden, a $30,000 house is on the market for $60,000, and people are buying it as fast as they can, and it's like, something's not right here. And so for a brief period of time, we backed off, and we backed off at the right point in time. I'm sure that there's been a lot of suffering in this room, in this community. It certainly was not easy on us, but we would have lost everything that we had if we would have kept following that curve. So the fact that we backed off, didn't give up, didn't change direction, but just kind of like paused for a second, really helped us go into the financial crisis really strong. And instead of losing things, we were actually in a position to try to help lenders get rid of properties that they didn't want, and provide housing for families that were unfortunately needing rentals that probably prior had owned. We turned our attention to downtown Paducah and the historic properties there. We looked at them 2006, 2007, the shell of the building that requires hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. They were just far too high on the purchase price in that 2006, 2007 era. And so 2008, the economy starts to do its thing in the wrong direction. 2009, we basically said to ourselves, before this really gets ridiculous again, let's buy historic property and let's dig in on that. So we really started on that about 2012, and we wanted to turn our attention to historic preservation, specifically downtown Paducah. So again, that short story kind of turned in long. I apologize for that, but from that basic footprint, we went into we ended up in the Coke plant and then building these businesses. Let me turn it over to Meagan for a little bit.
Okay, so we had several topics that we discussed with Bobby on kind of what would encompass Entrepreneurship 101, and so these are some of the topics that we came up with, and we're just kind of addressing it through our story, but again, we just feel like these are some milestones that maybe all entrepreneurs go through. So the first one is identifying needs and solving them through business creation. So I think all entrepreneurs at some point have an idea, and that idea is likely fueled by some sort of need that has been identified, that exists, and it's their way of solving the problem, solving the need. So one of our first dabblings with this is we had started buying commercial real estate, and I guess our first property or two was easy in that there were already commercial occupants either there or one slated to go in, so not a problem.
And again, we're doing all of this. We're doing all this, but with very little capital. Until we got really in the conversation of the Coke plant, everything that we were doing was very, very manageable. From just scraping together your extra earnings. Yes, sir. Sometimes none. Most of the time. Most of the time, going and getting money is more about creative financing, and it's more about understanding the value of the property, finding the right deals, potentially working with partners, and then as you acquire some assets and you have some equity, then moving equity into other positions to where it's benefiting the next purchase. And you may be able to get into a little bit different deals because now you have some equity to back behind it, so maybe the deal itself is better. And then after you own that particular piece of property, the perceived equity on that is extremely, has potential to really move you forward. So basically a bunch of small building blocks over time that allow you to enter into larger deals. And really that's kind of what we're saying, going from the residential into the commercial.
We built equity, not cash on hand, so.
But you still had to see to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. So then we came across one of our first, I guess, needs and solutions to try to solve it was we had purchased a commercial building that had been like a gift shop store that had closed and gone out of business. It was a vacant commercial building. We bought it and had it for several months. Bought it at auction, had it for several months, and at the time, Ed's background, he said we were educated. I think a funny note on that is that none of it is Ed has graduate work in business, but his degree is in biology and mine is in education, and so we weren't formally trained in what it is that we're doing.
I always joke that really the only thing in biology, if the snake crawls into this room,
he's your
I
guy.
can identify it. Beyond that, I haven't used it for much. I really enjoy the outdoors, though. So.
And he'll pick it up.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
That's right.
yes. So he, at the time, he was working at Honeywell. And I was a professor at Murray State at the time, and we had this building. He was undergoing, I think it was seismic upgrades at this point. Something was kind of looming that he was going to be laid off and lose his job potentially. And here we had this particular property that we'd had for several months. Really nobody was on the hook that was even remotely interested in renting as commercial space. And, here we're having to fork out the carrying cost of this building every month. So it was, we were approaching the start of a school year in August, and
we were actually on a 3-day canoe trip on our 10-year anniversary, and she put together the business plan.
Yeah, and part of that goes into the no capital, because I really wanted to be on a beach somewhere.
Cruise,
That was
right?
our 10-year anniversary cruise. We had to go on a canoe trip locally, but that was fine. And so on that, we were talking about what we were going to do with this building, and ultimately how we were going to make ends meet. If he lost his job, how are we going to make the payment on this building and the insurance and the taxes and everything else? And so
And it's not as doom and gloom as it sounds.
No,
this is just one of a thousand conversations.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Sounds worse than it is. Just.
But I had been offered, so I had a full-time career, but had been offered from a previous administrator a part-time teaching position at a school district to supplement my income. And we were considering this. So on this trip, though, we're having this conversation. I was like, oh, should I do this? And we figured out, and the amount of money I was going to bring home each month from this, second job would be just enough to pay the carrying costs of this commercial building. But it wasn't sustainable. Maybe I could suffer through that and do it for a year, but if we didn't have a tenant in a year, then what would we do? I couldn't do this long term. So we just kind of put our heads together, and this was over in Metropolis at the time. Metropolis didn't have a children's consignment store, and we thought children's consignment store could go in with, it's virtually one of the lowest overhead cost businesses to start up, because it's other people's stuff that you're selling, right? So 6 weeks later, we opened this business, and we were just happy to see that we thought if the business can just pay the carrying cost of this building, then each month that business is buying us that building. And so long term, the business has been open 5 years. We no longer own it, but it's paying for that building. And so I could not have kept up that second teaching job for the past 5 years to cover the carrying costs there. So that was one example. This next one, we have a short, 2-minute video to show you on saving a Paducah landmark.
And again, we're just using references from our path here. I'm sure that many of you all are sitting here with an example, with a need. You've got the idea in your head, and what that next step looks like. That's for no one to say but yourself. And so again, this is just a few examples of the next step for us as we've seen an opportunity, as we've had that idea that we are sitting on, that you may be sitting on right now, and kind of how we took that path to make it a business.
Do you want to say anything about the video?
So 2013, we purchased the Coke plant. We had 90 days of due diligence prior to that. It was a tough 90 days. I did get laid off due to the seismic upgrades. I was a trainer of flooring production, and we weren't going to be making any flooring for a long period of time until we got the plant seismically upgraded. So they did, however, believe that if they ever ran that plant again, that I might have some value to them. So fortunately, me and 2 others, we got assigned to Virginia, Hopewell, Virginia, rather than losing our job altogether. So I went out with 2 of my colleagues, and on a 9 to 12 month assignment. I was literally negotiating the final stages of the Coke plant deal while I was in my car headed to Virginia on this 9 to 12 month assignment. Fortunately, it turned into 4 months, and I was back in January of 2013 to get started on the project. The 90 days of due diligence, I worked 1 week I'd work 5 days, the next week I'd work 4. As soon as I got out of work, I'd fly from Richmond to Paducah, direct flight. Well, not direct flight, but I didn't fly into Nashville. I flew to Chicago and then to Paducah Thursday night, and had pre-scheduled meetings for contractors, lenders, anybody who might have a role in shaping and designing this project. All day Friday, anybody who would take it on Saturday, if they'd take it Sunday before I had to fly out, that was great too, and then I'd fly out Sunday and be back at work on Monday. So we did that for 90 days and pieced this together and hoping to get it closed by January 4th. So the first year was just piecing it back together, and I won't go into the details too much on that, but securing the property. There were no businesses in there. Here's this behemoth of a building. We've got started out at 60,000 square foot. We tore off an unoriginal 17,000 square foot add-on in the back and left with 43,000 square feet. And so by the time that this video was made and we were given an Entrepreneur of the Year award, we were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in with no occupants and a little bit prettier building, but a lot of us blood, sweat, and tears. We got Entrepreneur of the Year before we opened a business in the Coke plant. So anyway, the only reason we're showing this to you is because it really sets the stage for the path that we said that we were going to be on at the time that this video was on. Hopefully you can see that some of that.
This was filmed about 4 years ago.
Midtown Paducah is having a resurgence right now. Really the last piece of the puzzle to make Midtown that gateway into our historic downtown area is restoring that Coke plant and putting new businesses in there.
Enter Ed and Meagan Musselman of Musselman Properties.
That's dry ground
The
right there.
Musselmans got their start in real estate in 2004, purchasing and renting out single-family homes. Since that time, they've moved on to commercial projects. One of those involves what is arguably the most recognizable building in Paducah, the Coca-Cola plant.
Ed and Meagan Musselman are entrepreneurs at heart. They have great ideas and a vision for the Coca-Cola plant, something that people in this community have wanted for a long time.
This is a project of pride, not just for us, but I truly believe for Paducah as a whole.
The Musselmans plan to renovate the Coca-Cola plant to provide a space for other entrepreneurs to open up shop. They have plans to host a restaurant and even a brewery inside the historic building.
I have high expectations for the Coca-Cola plant. I think in a few years from now, you're going to see that the Musselmans have started their own business, and they've also helped a number of entrepreneurs start their businesses within their facility as well.
We want everything to complement each other and really make this a destination to where we can promote the building and promote the Coke plant as a whole and benefit all occupants.
Paducah has proudly selected Ed and Meagan Musselman of Musselman Properties as our Entrepreneurs of the Year.
This is not an end game for me. This is just a step along the way. A journey that ends with a final step to success. The entrepreneur isn't celebrating that last step. They're celebrating the 10,000 before it. So we were certainly honored to win that award. Lots of deserving businesses and entrepreneurs out there. But we came across it a couple months ago, and it was really just it was nice to see that. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is we set out on a path, and we held that path. And whatever that path that you're on, whenever you set that goal, you sometimes need to adjust how you're going about it. You sometimes need to maybe take a detour, but don't willy-nilly just adjust the goal. You've got to really, really, really have good cause for concern to just abandon all hope and say it wasn't worth it, because it's going to be hard along the way. And if you're not really dead set on what you're trying to do, there's going to be 100 different reasons to quit. So again, we're proud of the fact that we filled in some of the words in that narrative. So Paducah. The whole thing that we started looking at occupying a downtown building with was a craft brewery, creative city, creative culture, just such a good vibe to the whole creativity aspect of our town, and it was missing a brewery. So we were going to go downtown, and that was going to be the occupant. We ended up getting to a larger building than what we were setting out to own, and it happened to be in Midtown, but we knew all along that there was going to be a brewery in that. So that was the one thing that we had earmarked as an occupant. As we were kind of growing what we needed to do within that 43,000 square foot, and it was 60, but 17 we could remove. But 43,000 square foot, what are we going to do with the rest of it? And then it was, how do we complement and basically either bring things to Paducah that Paducah needs, that work along with the brewery, that work along with what's already in Paducah, or how do we better expose the masses, the passersby on the interstate, how do we better expose them to Paducah and the true reasons that they should stop here and see our town. And the artists and the musicians are, two of those things that I think are just invaluable assets to our community. So that was another problem that we tried to solve through business creation. Megan, you want to move on to the
we needed the anchor tenant. We did not want to be restaurant owners, but we are now restaurant owners of the Mellow Mushroom. We walked countless other restaurateurs through the space, and lots of people wanted to do things, but ultimately just for whatever reason weren't taking action. And we purposefully built the brewery without a kitchen, which we heard a lot of cause for concern of is we need food here, and we're like, well, you can order takeout.
You need TVs, you need Bud Light, and you need food, or you're not going to be successful. I mean, those three things, constantly. Yes, ma'am.
Have you seen the power plant?
It's as full as I want it to be right now. We've got all we can handle at the moment. So no, we have spaces available. One thing that we've purposely never done is list any space for lease. So we basically have a conversation, literally, I'm gonna say 200, 250, 300 individual conversations of time, energy, dialogue back and forth, tours of the plant. Anybody who's come to us with an idea, we've taken the time to vet it with them and to share what opportunities could be there. But none of it has been us going out and seeking. It's here's what we're looking for, and people have come to us. So we've had Dry Ground open in February of 2014 and 2015, and Piper's opened May, I believe, April or May of 2015, and it was then after that it was probably 6 months, and it was this nice. Again, this isn't a strip mall. There was no preconceived way that this was all going to work together. It was just kind of, all right, this wall shouldn't be here, but it's here, and we're going to have to work around it. And the positioning of the building and the shape of the building and all of these creative, challenges became very real every time you put a new occupant in. So you put a new occupant in, now they have customers, and they also have employees, and they have needs that are interacting with other businesses. So for the first 5 or 6 occupants, it was really nice, probably 4 or 5 occupants, it was really nice. The spread out period allowed us to kind of reach a status quo in between. February of this year, it was Mellow Mushroom opening, the ice cream factory opening, Jonas Niehoff is socially present upstairs, Josh Coffey expanded his Piper's Lab open. So it was like, right now, we're still in that calming phase because we just got hit with a windfall of new occupants, and we're just trying to make sure that everything kind of pieces back. We want to spend a lot of time building the collaborative nature of the businesses in the building and make sure that we're doing as much in the community as we can, make sure that we're reaching out to the fellow businesses. And, we've got a lot more of that before we can say, hey, come on, let's bring some more people in.
But there is still a lot of space, yeah. And then this summer, we've entered into the barbecue business. There was a 53-year-old business, Nose Barbecue, that was slated to close. They kind of gave a week's notice. They were ready for retirement, kind of semi-in-retirement, and had some misfortune with some managers' employees, and they just decided that they were going to close. There was no future generation was wanting to take it over as full ownership and running the day-to-day. And
this has been like one of the best win-wins that I've ever come across. I mean, you've got you've got some you've got some people that are looking to retire and slow down and enjoy their retirement, and they have this tremendous asset, if you will, that they've built. I mean, they and their parents, I mean, just, crafted this over 50 years, and they don't even see the value. And they ultimately, and to go in there and to, you can look at this and, if all it was true capitalism and you're going in there and trying to basically steal something of value for nothing, that, like, there's people that do business that way. I don't really feel like the true entrepreneur is operating in that mentality ever. And so we're going in there and we just ask the question. We hear they're going to close it. We ask the question, would you be willing to sell it instead of close it? And they're like, we would love that. And they said basically they'd been trying to sell it under the table or under the radar for about 2 or 3 years, and they just felt like nobody had any interest, that there was no value there. And it was like, you have tremendous value here. I was like, don't close the doors. Whatever you do, keep these doors open. They were planning on, I believe, reached out to them around June 17th. They were planning on closing June 24th. If they shut those doors June 24th, then all of a sudden they have an asset sale. They have property in Lake City, and they're not going to be able to retire off of that the same way that they're going to be able to retire off of a barbecue restaurant with 53 years of ongoing quality service. So we went in there, convinced them of the value that they had, and asked if they'd be willing to work a deal with us. And so we were able to do this deal, no money out of our pocket, zero. We walked in there and just basically picked up the shovel and started spreading coals and started learning how to cook barbecue. And they're both honored and excited that we saw the value in what they were doing, and we're honored and excited that we're able to take a profitable business over with very little, nothing, other than just 4 months of
Sweat equity.
And so a win-win. Noth's is going to continue. We're learning a Western Kentucky tradition of true Western Kentucky barbecue on open pits. And anyway, that's that's just I don't know. It's definitely an honor. Definitely an honor to be involved in that.
All right. Let's go on.
Keep your eyes open, because I've read so many books, and most of them around real estate investing specifically. But if you miss the deal of the century, don't worry, because there's one next week. And so, like, don't ever rush, and don't ever get in a hurry and feel like, I missed that one deal that I should have jumped on. If it wasn't right at the time, if it didn't feel right at the time, 9 times out of 10, it's probably better to pass on it. You're going to end up with more deals that you didn't like getting into in hindsight if you basically don't take the time to lose a couple that you should have moved on. Securing capital and financing for your business, this is an obvious, challenging task for everyone. We're no exception to that. So this, I think, is paramount. Without really any surprise, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have any issues with capital or financing, I've got business cards. I want to know. I want to know who you are, because if you're building something, you're trying to take where you're at and go to the next level. You're always trying to do that, and so you're either solving problems, you're building businesses, you're putting people together. All of it takes money. All of it takes time. If all you're doing is trying to maintain a status quo, you're really not building anything. In order to build things, equity injection, capital injection is required. The not so obvious piece to this is the mindset that you must maintain through the entire process. You're going to hear no every time you ask. Every time you ask, you're going to hear no, except for one. That's it. And so, like, you have to get used to it. You have to get used to getting beaten up. You can walk in somewhere and feel really confident about what you're saying, and you just can't let the context of that conversation change. Whenever you're walking out of there, you got to feel the exact same way. And you got to do that over and over and over again. And that's just going to be a fact. And if that's not the case, then if you're not being told no the first time, you probably need to set your sights a little higher.
That's true.
So there's resources out there, lots of them. We have a great community for that. And these people go out of their way to put things in your hands that are going to make your process easier. And if you're not taking advantage of those, at least as starting blocks, that's where I suggest you go. Chris Woldridge with small business development and he works out of the Murray State office, also works out of our chamber building. Chamber of Commerce has a ton of resources. Paducah Economic Development, our Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then there is a time where you basically have to recognize that partners are sometimes a means to an end. And I've always been told, I don't know how many times, but I always reference it, that you don't take partners on, or you only take partners on whenever you need to accomplish something that you can't accomplish without partners. And I think that's a real skeptical way to look at it. And to a degree, that's kind of the best way. If you're sitting there like, I don't know if it's a good idea to partner with them, that's a real easy litmus test. Back to my biology degree, litmus test, blue or red. And I'm colorblind, but blue or red actually works for me. So it's a good litmus test to say, can I accomplish this without a partner? And if the answer is an easy yes, then probably you don't need a partner. And then you need to look at, why am I doing that? However, there's certain points in time where you probably shouldn't belabor the process, and you should look for good partners because they can help spur the momentum, the enthusiasm, and the progress. So we have some great partners in the Stringies, Brandon and Jessica Stringy in Mellow Mushroom, pictured there in the map. And then Andy Wiggins and his wife Sally. Andy's our head brewer at Dry Ground. And Andy sent me a text on Monday when NOS announced they were closing. He said, hey, you want to see if we can keep this open and buy it? And I immediately replied yes. And 48 hours later, we had a handshake deal. So we're working with Andy and Sally on NOS, and we've asked Hugh and Angela to stay on as 10% minority partners for continuity in the ownership of the family business. They have a daughter that's not interested in the business, but hopefully she'll be interested in that 10% down the road, and just kind of keep that going.
Okay.
Here you go. Why don't you take over?
Well, it's your sweat equity there. So just continuing on this, so we threw some pictures in. That's Ed not looking for money in a dumpster, but looking for stuff that was getting hauled out. But we thought it was funny to put with the securing capital and financing, and that because we've never had a safety net, and that's what's made the whole financing part of these endeavors very scary. And we joke about a book and how if it was like a his and her version, and you read them, blindly, and then found out it was like really talking about the same situation, they'd be very different.
My book would be a lot shorter. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
It would be. I've certainly been more emotional about the whole process, and still am. But in doing what we've been doing, we've had to get in uncomfortable situations financially, and have a lot of faith in what we're doing. We've certainly put it all out on the line to do what we're doing, and knowing that, in doing that, you could lose everything. And I guess you have to get to a point where you're okay to lose everything. And fortunately, I kind of go back to the fact that we got married in college and we had nothing. And so it's like, well, we've had nothing before, we can go back to having nothing again, But through that, Ed talked about the rental process, years and years and years of, fixing leaky toilets and, roofing issues and stuff, and nothing ever breaks, in a normal time. It's always like on Christmas Eve or sometime when you're trying to be with your family.
Yeah, it was Christmas Eve. Literally, I got a Roto-Rooter. My upgrade for plumbing repairs was I actually bought a Roto-Rooter, and there was a Christmas Eve that I was missing family, roto-rooting the drains of a rental house. And, and again, at that point in time, anyway.
It's just what has to happen.
That's
but, this is a picture of Ed in the smokestack at the Coke plant. It's just kind of a funny picture. He has been all over that building, and so I just trust his judgment on how things are, because I'm not going to those places. And then we joke with the dumpster diving because he's very, very frugal. He doesn't throw anything away, and everything, it's been, his mindset to repurpose everything in the building. If something could be repurposed, we're going to repurpose it. And so he wouldn't trust the subcontractors that might be in there, and he would like check every dumpster before it was hauled off to make sure they didn't accidentally throw something away that he might be able to repurpose. So he didn't know when I took that shot, and he's just now kind of warming up to the idea with me sharing it publicly. And then the sacrifice, this is a picture, one of many, like one day, I guess, battle wounds, I guess. But this is just a pair of shoes that I finally threw out this last winter. But I've worn these shoes for like the past 8 winters, and it's just to show that our minds focus on growing what we're doing, and not right now on materialistic things. The shoes worked; they were ugly, and they finally got thrown out because they weren't nice shoes that could be repaired, and the soles finally did start peeling off. So they finally hit the dump. But that's the condition they were in when we got there. So we've sacrificed a lot, and we're continuing to sacrifice, but kind of going back to what Ed said in the mindset, if you are in that right mindset and you really believe in what your goal is going to be, it makes those tough days a little easier. And we live in a great community that's very encouraging, and that makes the tough days easier when they come along and pat you on the back and encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. Because oftentimes we're comparing our behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels, and social media is hard. We've sacrificed a lot of family vacations and other things that maybe, we could have done, but that's not where our money needed to be spent at the time. And so we have hopes that one day we'll do those things, but the time just hasn't been there yet because we're committed to our path right now.
This isn't a horror story of a cautionary tale of don't do your own thing and don't be an entrepreneur, but you just really have to want it. And if you don't want it, it's going to be easy to not get it. And that's, and it's so easy. You see businesses open and you see businesses close, and it's like, how in the world could you go from full dedication to already doing a 180 and deciding that, oh yeah, that whole thing that I just went through and struggled for 2 months, I'm done. It didn't work out. That to me is just a clear sign of somebody didn't want it enough. And I know that there's a whole lot of circumstances there, and I don't mean to judge anybody that's been through that situation. But if you've spent the better part of months, years, whatever, working towards a goal, there's not a chance in the world you're giving up on it after 2 months. You're going to do whatever it takes, whatever you had to do to get there. You're going to do it a little bit longer, and you're going to make it work. Or at least it's going to be open longer than 2 months. Networking, collaboration. We believe very, very strongly that this is good business. And I hope that it shows through everything that we do. That absolutely 2 businesses working together for the betterment of either or both businesses is so much better than 2 businesses working alone. And I think that it's so easy to get in there, especially if you're struggling financially or you're just going through the grind of building businesses and looking for capital and this, that, and the other. It's really easy to look at the dollar. But if you lose sight of the dollar, it's so much easier to do the right thing. And you just keep working together, and you're not worried about if somebody's getting a 60% benefit off of this and you're getting a 40%, or who's got the bigger piece of the pie. It's just, hey, look, here's something that's not costing me anything. It's helping you, and vice versa. There's times that it goes the other way, and you're just trying to build the whole, make new pies instead of everybody fighting for the same piece of the pie. So we've done as much as we possibly can. Anything that comes to us that there's a collaborative nature, we're all about it, and we'll continue down that path. The Rotunda project, I don't know if you all got to see that. That was fantastic. Documentary done by local musicians. There's a little bit of a trailer here. The full one isn't out
as a musician
for us to show, but I just love this
collaboration.
This is in the Rotunda of the Coke
other
plant.
Musicians is essential.
I believe it was 20 artists, 20 musicians, somewhere around that, came together and worked on 4 songs together, recorded them.
What is really important in life is how we get along with our other human beings.
if they show that publicly again, I highly recommend going. It's tremendous. It's something to get excited about for your community. How do I get out of this?
I'll get you. Right down here.
Okay. Partnership with Baptist Health. So, we've had.
So we're here on site at the Rotunda Restoration construction site.
That's not us.
That's not us. I think that's Murray State.
Somebody else's rotunda.
And so there's been countless pop-up shops in different businesses and in the rotunda there. Some have gone on to put together brick and mortar locations and have done really well. And it's just been wonderful to see the creativity and the passion that has gone through the building already. Something that Baptist Health is a huge business responsible for lots of jobs, lots of obviously the health of our community, and they saw it within their scope to collaborate with us. So they have helped us with a portion of the building. They helped with Luther Carson's office and turned that into the Baptist Health Founders Room, and any rentals there go to the foundation, go to the Baptist Health Foundation. So again, it's one of those where it's, if everybody's just worried about the betterment of the community, it all kind of helps everybody. So anyway, just don't.
Well, and on this topic, in terms of for an entrepreneur, you can't discount. You may not be a very social person by nature, but I don't think you can go through the path of entrepreneurship in isolation. I think you have to surround yourself with other people. And Ed, we're from the area, but we specifically moved to Paducah before our oldest daughter was going to start school. We were seeking Paducah out for the school systems at that time, and purchased land over here at that time. And I remember telling Ed, I thought, it's going to take us 20 years before we feel like Paducah is home and before we really feel plugged in and connected. And I couldn't have been more wrong. It was really, really easy and continues to be easy to meet people. People will introduce you to other people. And however, if you're new to the area or you're new to starting your business, we have a wonderful chamber. The chamber has offsets like Paducah Young Professionals. There's tons of charity events. Nonprofits in our area are constantly looking for board members. There's ways to get plugged in, and then you start meeting other people and sharing ideas, and you get that momentum to help you.
Yeah, and I did skip over one piece that I think is very important. The opportunities in Paducah specifically. If you're sitting here wondering, should I take my idea and go to Nashville? Should I take my idea and go to St. Louis? Should I, whatever is going around in your head about, is Paducah the right location? I think Paducah is set up with all of the tools to be a very unique opportunity for small business owners and entrepreneurs for many years to come. And I'll do my best to consolidate that thought. But Clarksville, Tennessee. You hear a lot about Clarksville. Clarksville's growing. Lots of people coming in. Lots of growth. Lots of opportunity. It's a Nashville suburb. It's never going to have an identity of its own. And it's not because there's not creative people in Nashville. It's because you have to basically trumpet loud enough to mute out anything that's happening in Nashville to really truly be something that people are going to seek out. So what has been a challenge of Paducah and the growth of Paducah for many, many years has been its isolation and its distance from large cities. That is like its biggest strength. We have a creative, artistic community that people want to seek out. Not everybody is looking for the city experience in the city. Some people want to see the city experience but have the close-knit community and have that small town feel. And so you have, as entrepreneurs in this room, in this community, you have opportunities to create unique things because people aren't going 2 hours necessarily to get it, to Nashville, to St. Louis, to Louisville. They're coming to Paducah. So all of our surrounding communities are coming here, and they want the same things that Clarksville people drive to Nashville for. And all those opportunities, all of those needs need to be met. And they're being met in a big way here. for the size community that we have, we are really, really filling those gaps well. There's people that now are getting off the interstate. 10 minutes. We're all right, so we'll cut that short. But basically, I really strongly feel like there is no longer that sentiment that you're here in Paducah and you got to work with what you got. You got every opportunity that you need to make something really, really, really great here. No limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. And around the same time that we saw this sign, this was on an executive's desk. There was a replica down at Coca-Cola. One of the gentlemen, early president, he had this on his desk, and they set this back up in honor to him. Not politically correct, so I definitely will say that, and definitely include the female in that as well. And Meagan noticed that Broadway also had something very similar on around a similar time.
Yeah.
So that's another thing is I feel like our community does a really good job at just doing things, doing the right thing. You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who gets the credit for it. It doesn't matter who is right, who is wrong. Let's just work together and move that peg up. When to leave your day job. And I think, I'm sorry that we definitely talked too long. So when to leave your day job. Basically, don't leave your day job until you absolutely cannot continue, until it is basically a hindrance on your path. Because as much as you want, if you are truly dedicated to opening a business, that's all you can think about, that's what you want to do, you want to jump with both feet into that, and you could care less about what you're doing for the paycheck. The longer that you can hold that day job, the longer that you can hold that paycheck and still progress at the same rate of speed with your business, the better off. So it's always going to be uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable with the lack of time and working 2 full-time jobs as long as you possibly can, to where you know that whenever you lose that income, that you're not taking that step back. If you jump too quickly and you're without the income, it is the same stressor or worse than if you were working twice as hard. So don't leave it behind too soon. But at the same point in time, whenever you're all of a sudden the things that you can't do, the things that you need to do, you can't do, you cannot accomplish, you cannot physically get them done, you cannot take a meeting or you cannot take a phone call, and all of a sudden your progress of your business is starting to suffer, that's whenever you probably need to start having that real fine look at the details and see if it's something you can do.
That's probably all we need to say about that.
Okay, well, the next piece there, be willing for quality of life to take a hit, not the business. Look at it this way, not the other, okay? Your quality of life is the buffer you have to protect your business, not the other way around. Everything that you have, every luxury that you have is a luxury because that's what it is. Don't let your business initially be the feedstock to your lifestyle. Let it be the other way around. Let your lifestyle be the feedstock to your business. And then if you do have to put something on the back burner, if you do have to do something that's a little bit uncomfortable, do that with your lifestyle, with your personal finances, and let your business strengthen, because that's what's going to feed you long term.
Mm-hmm.
Meagan, why don't you take this one?
Quickly, Ed had already mentioned to have the significant other on board if there is a significant other. We went to a lot of seminars early on trying to learn what we didn't know and continue to do so. And we ran across other couples who were trying to do similar things to what we were doing, but one was for it and one was against it. And we saw how early on they were spending so much energy trying to convince the other one of why this is what they should be doing, and it's unfortunate. But I don't think I could personally, do this without Ed on board. He's stubborn enough; he probably could. But I needed that support. I couldn't. It gets too hard. If I was getting second guessed by him all the time, I think I'd jump ship. So I need him to be supportive and encouraging on those hard days.
I'm kind of the crazy one, and she's the grounded one, and
That's true.
And she doesn't stop me from being crazy and being dreamer, but I definitely and it's not that she doesn't dream. She just keeps me kind of pointed in the same direction, in the right direction. So I'd say that she's detail oriented and I'm big picture.
I'd say that's probably an accurate summary. And we're fortunate that most of the time one of us gets discouraged, the other one is in a positive state of mind to bring the other one up, and vice versa. And then now that we have partners in some of our businesses, we found that that's a benefit, that if by chance we're both feeling discouraged on something, then we have partners that might be encouraging to us, or if they're discouraged, we can encourage them. So it's nice to not go at it alone.
And also on the energy piece, if there's a ton of energy that you're having to exhaust into whatever it is that you're doing, if you are having to spend all this energy trying to convince the naysayer that you were right, it will be a lot of wasted energy, but then also there's going to be a whole lot of times where it will be very easy for them to appear correct. So in those points in time, you're trying to argue that you're right. If obviously it's a very trying time and that person wants to prove you wrong, they can prove you wrong. And that's defeating, and that's enough probably for the whole thing to be over, either the marriage or the business.
Well, and we've just got pictures here of our kids, because we do have a lot of family support, and we could not do it without our village that help us with our kids, our family. And then now that our daughter's older and she sometimes gets rides with friends and things like that, but they also come with us in a lot of ways, and they're no stranger. We asked them, well, our oldest at least told us she did not want to come tonight, and it wasn't because she didn't want to hear the talk, but she knew that we might stay 30 minutes after talking to people, and that's what wears her out. So she was like, thanks, but no thanks. But
this picture right here, Meagan went into labor after our soft opening at Dry Ground. So Annie Kate was 1 week old at our ribbon cutting there. That was her first time out away from anything, but we wanted to include her. I think Ryan had a baseball game or something.
All right, yeah. Anyway, okay. And just more pictures.
So back to I referenced the Appalachian Trail earlier, and whenever I was doing research for this, I was trying for a lot of years to try to fit it in between finals and the start of the next semester, and I kept coming up with 91 to 94 days, and I can miss the first couple days of class, and all right, I can maybe squeeze in 97 days, and I'm asking people, is this right? And this is back in 2002, and they said, look, if you don't have 91 days, you're going to hate the experience. And I'm glad I took that advice, and I took a semester off school right before we got married, and in my preparations, one thing I came across was if hiking the Appalachian Trail isn't the single greatest priority of your life right now, then go do what is. And I feel like the exact same thing is true with business. Until that is your number one priority, do what your number one priority is. And it doesn't mean that you can have competing interests, but if you aren't ready to place this thing and give it and feed it and do everything that you need to do to make it go, then it's not going to be likely successful. And again, I want to just highlight again a point that I brought up, and we're getting the axe on it, so we're done on this. But this is the start of the trail, and it's raining, it's pouring, it's cold. It's this is Springer Mountain in Georgia, and it was a rough day. My dad did the approach trail with me. He went to 7.7 miles to even get to the start, and it was wet and cold to him. It wasn't wet and cold to me. It was the start of an adventure.